a good number of people, including the main opposition party, refused to accept the outcome of the elections. And for some of us who are citizens of this country, it is very, very worrisome. We are aware of the fact that many of the countries that are in a state of crisis at the moment in Africa are countries which had electoral problems. And those electoral problems exploded into crisis. And therefore, in some countries, you now have civil wars as a result of the outcome of elections. We really do not want that kind of a thing to happen in this country. Some of you remember that when I convened a press conference deliberately before the elections, it was to plead with the society, it was to plead with journalists and people in Sierra Leone for us to avoid irregularities at elections. We also wanted to preach to the public about the need for us to promote safe and acceptable elections, non-violent elections. But for some reason or the other, we simply have not succeeded in convincing the institutions that are in charge of elections to promote the whole concept of good governance. Remember, I listed down the state institutions that are very pivotal to proper elections. We said that the Electoral Commission itself should be seen as a very paramount entity to make sure that there is no crisis as a result of the outcome of an election. We noted it at Bintumani. And we also said that the police force should promote good governance and should set good examples. We also mentioned other institutions. But my greatest concern is that even though at the moment we see quite a number of civil societies preaching peace, reconciliation, etc., these were the same institutions that did not take any action when things were going wrong in this country. For you to be able to be credible, a credible institution, when you have crises like this one, you should be seen to be neutral and objective. But a good number of the members of the public do not see some of these institutions as neutral, as objective, because they have taken political sides earlier on. Now, we believe that a new set of people should appear and begin to preach the concept of peace. Then they will be accepted. But anybody who had taken political sides and who was seen to be part of the process of running the governance structure, even if under the table, cannot be a credible person now. So we are very, very concerned about that. But the important thing is that if the All People's Congress Party insists that that party would not take part in the governance system in the country, the implications are many and very, very dangerous. In the first place, now that the president has started appointing ministers, their credibility would be in dispute because we have to take them to parliament for approval. If the main party, the opposition party, refuses to be part of that process, then they will be just SNPP ministers. They will not be credible ministers. And this is what we wanted to avoid all of these problems. Also, importantly, we know that we are part of the international system, whereby we send relatives, we send people to organizations like ECOWAS, European Union. I was a member of European Union delegation and delegations elsewhere. But now those organizations insist that you must have a combination of people from various political parties. Now, if we are going to have a political party that is just one, a parliament that is just one-sided, it will not be credible. In fact, they may not even accept them to be members of those organizations. So these are all the implications. Now, people are saying that, oh, well, in 1973, the SLPP did not take part in the elections, and yet the parliament continued to operate. But 1973 and now are two different times. In the first place, in 1973, the APC took part in the elections, and the SLPP took part in the elections. Then, of course, it will not work. We have a whole business and organization called the Peace and Reconciliation Commission and this and that. And people simply do not treat it very seriously, because it is not the creation of the people. The people have not accepted it. But the important thing is, we as journalists must also work very, very hard to make sure that peace returns to this country. How do we do it? In the first place, information should be objective and should be factual. And we should not be seen to be partisan in our presentation. Otherwise, you can easily just add more injury to the whole already problem created by the state itself. So like we said, we see that I'm worried about what is going to happen the moment Parliament convenes. If Parliament convenes and there is no other party except the SLPP, then we would have reverted to a one-party system. And the one-party system is most unacceptable by the new international arrangement. It's not acceptable anymore. In the earlier days, when Sheikh Stevens was president here, it was acceptable. When Sekou Touré was president of Guinea, it was acceptable. When Nkrumah was president of Ghana, it was acceptable. Now it is not acceptable. One, because the international community will not accept it. It's not part of the governance structures of modern day world. And then secondly, the people now are more knowledgeable than in the past. This social media thing is very, very important, because it is what people use to communicate. You see the difference between this election this time and past elections. People use social media to change a whole lot of things, and it's affected the whole system. So you cannot take too many chances. Our people are now totally enlightened. They are not bushmen anymore like in the past. They are very enlightened people. So what do we do to make sure that we address this issue? Now, it is no longer the business of just people in Freetown. We must now take information to our people in the rural areas. In Bow, in Makeni, in Kenema, in Kabbalah, they must be part and parcel of the process now. Otherwise, they will not accept the outcome. Like the present situation in this country, if the outcome of these past elections remains unaccepted, then we have a crisis. Even if you go to the chiefs and tell them, oh chief, we are now the new government, please recognize us as the new government, the fact of the matter is that the chief alone does not take decisions. He must be able to convince people in his own chiefdom. And people are now more enlightened than before. They are not going to just sit down and say, oh, now chief, don't talk this. They have to be part and parcel of the whole process itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a real crisis in this country. I don't know what happened in the conduct of the elections, but the fact of the matter is that, one, the All People's Congress Party, which is an old party, a large party, has refused to accept the outcome, and the implications are very, very serious. We must accept it. And then secondly, the international community do not seem to accept the outcome of these elections. You know what the Carter Center said? I know the Carter Center is a very effective center. I went there. When I wanted to set up some systems here, I went there for training, I know. And I know that it's a very credible organization. And the man who made the statement on behalf of the Carter Center was a senator, past senator, highly respected person. So if he says that the outcome of the elections could not be seen to be credible, it will carry weight in America. And the European Union has not been very happy about the outcome of the elections. Our own people too, even knew our own local component of Elections Watch, has not come up with a positive outcome of the elections, a positive statement. So we have all of these problems. What do we do? what do we do? Some people have suggested that the international community will intervene. I was with the former president yesterday, and he said the only way out is to sit down and discuss these issues. All the political parties, the stakeholders, should sit down and address these issues. Because if this country remains in this kind of problem, then we have an international, it will affect the ordinary people. And worse again, if the elections are discredited to the point that sanctions